Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News. It's Saturday, September 13th, 11:30 a.m. And with all the disparate things going on in the country, there is always one common thread, and that is that Senator Rand Paul will do Senator Rand Paul stuff. As you know, the other day, President Trump's administration had the Navy sink a Venezuelan dope boat full of dope people and dope stuff, and not in a dope way, as they would say. But it was done, and now Rand Paul is on his high horse, riding through Washington, complaining that we did it all wrong. And he's obviously not a big Constitution guy, regardless of what he says. And it's always been funny when he gets into certain things where he's talking about, especially on the drug side, considering he's sponsored by the alcohol industry, which in reality is kind of a drug and has probably screwed up a few people. I know I've been screwed up. So I would say shut up about it. But in this case, he is saying that there was a constitutional violation by Trump sinking the boat because it should have gone to Congress and they should have declared war, and that is not true. Earlier this month, just so we know, U.S. forces targeted and sank a Venezuelan vessel supposedly carrying narcotics. And it wasn't a fishing boat. You can see it's a fast mover. It's got stuff sitting it's obviously not full of milk and cookies for the children of Cuba. Intelligence linked it to Tren de Aragua and possibly to the new and more famous cartel de los Soles, which, as a jefe, has one Nicolas Maduro in charge of it, both of which are officially labeled as terrorist organizations by the U.S. Treasury and State Department. And let's not forget, U.S. officials have openly described, once again, President Nicolas Maduro as the boss of Cartel de los Soles. He is in charge of the narco structure. He's also in charge of Venezuela. He can do two things at once. He can multitask his evil ways. So, from the Trump administration perspective, striking that ship wasn't just about drugs, it was a counterterrorism action. Enter Ron Paul. We've done articles about Ron before and his psychology. You can find them in the link, or you can go to southfloridaconservative.com, look on this article, and you will see the link to it there and to a couple things about what we could have done in Venezuela other than blowing the shit out of it, which is what everybody wants us to do. That said, let's get back to this thing that the strike is unconstitutional. And his argument, Rand Paul's argument, the president cannot simply blow up a ship on suspicion without congressional approval. That due process, once again, you're hearing the term due process misapplied, as we hear due process misapplied in all the illegal immigrant stories, right? Rand's kind of a one-trick pony. That due process still applies. He compared it to executing someone without a trial, and then there was a very small violin playing in the background while he did it. Now, this is not a new thing for Paul. As I said, he's consistently pressed Congress to reassert its war powers. Syria, Yemen, Niger, repealing the AUMFs. He made a career of standing in the way of executive military actions based on his I'm a libertarian shit, right? But here's the catch. He rarely wins any of these battles. His proposals usually fail by lopsided votes or they get vetoed. As we said in the other article, he does it to do it. He's like Massey. He knows there's enough people out there that'll cover for him that he can be out there looking at himself in the mirror like I'm an intellectual hero while everybody else does the dirty work. Rand, it's about time you got your hands dirty. And I'm going to ask you that question in a second. So the bigger legal and political framework, when the U.S. designates groups like Tren de Aragua as terrorist organizations, that changes the rules of engagement. It's no longer, and remember this when your friends are telling you that they're wrong, that you're wrong, but you aren't. You're right. It's no longer a law enforcement issue once you become a terrorist group. These entities are treated as if they are armed enemies. That gives the commander in chief the authority to act swiftly to protect the nation. As this ship is floating across the Gulf of America, or whatever you want to call it, the Caribbean, do you think they had enough time to get Congress together, put together a pamphlet on what was happening, and then get the votes to stop it before it got to anywhere? It could have got to Europe by that time, right? No, this is a battlefield. Things are getting done. It's about time we started doing this shit the right way. All right. So they are enemies of the state. They are armed enemies. They are small little armies. We really need to change the whole idea of who we are fighting out there, because we are not fighting Iran. We are fighting these proxies. We're not fighting China. We are fighting their proxies, most of which are in Congress, but we're still fighting them. And these little private armies that are for sale to the highest bidder have to be treated as little private armies that are out there trying to get us. No more with this, it's a criminal enterprise shit. That was a mistake that was made during the Bush administration when he decided to take those guys and put them in a life imprisonment with no charges in Guantanamo Bay. It had to be said, right? So when Rand Paul calls this unconstitutional, critics argue he's ignoring the Congress already empowered the executive, which they did when it agreed to these terror designations. In other words, Trump wasn't acting on a hunch. He was striking a legally defined terrorist target. So here's where it makes it a little more complicated. And this is the what I find is Rand Paul's selective fury. Now he's going through all this because it's making headlines right now, right? Because the Navy is down there and frogmen and everything that Tony Montana tells you. You got the frogmen, you got the this, you got the that, you got the AC in the air, right? Paul has poured endless energy into these Senate hearings around COVID, around the CDC, and around his favorite girlfriend, Dr. Fauci, on gain of function research, on what he knew when he knew, all this nonsense. He made headlines, which is what he likes. He made viral clips, which is what he likes. And he made plenty of noise, which is what he likes. It keeps the people back home in his state warm and fuzzy while they keep this guy in office. But you know what has never happened? No accountability. Fauci has never been indicted for anything. If anybody is to blame for Anthony Fauci wandering around a free man, it is Rand Paul. But he'll defend South American drug dealers and terrorists till the end. But when he had Anthony Fauci, which he has enough information to, at least if they put all the piles of paper on Anthony Fauci, he would smother to death, right? He's had the chance. He has the DOJ that he needs. He has everything that he needs to bring this thing forward, and he has done this much. What a piece of shit. Call it as you see it, right? The CDC, Anthony Fauci, if you believe it or not, did a lot of things wrong. If you really believe everything, they tried to kill us all and bring about a socialist wonderland or whatever was going to go on. Fauci materially gained throughout the entire event. He goes all the way back to the AIDS crisis. He has always been an opportunist for that. That's where he should have stayed. Paul should have stayed over there, hammering him, getting him into a courtroom, getting him convicted, or even better, making him poor because he could. A lot of Fauci's money comes from shit that he played around with at the pharmaceutical industry, let alone class action suits that could have made this guy broke, taken his security clearance, made it where he could never do anything again, which is what the Democrats would have done to a Republican if they were in the same situation. Okay? So that's where I'm coming from with this. He is saying he's the lone voice of principle. He's bullshit, right? You get tired of it. I mean, we joke about, we do an article, we joke about it a little bit. He's delusional, but there's enough people to cover for him. Now he's once again starting to become a roadblock at a time where we do not want a roadblock, and not a roadblock in a good way. He's doing it on some bullshit HOA back rule thing that nobody cares about because we aren't playing the game that he wants us to play. We're playing an entirely different game, and the rules have already been put out there for everybody to see. So the Trump administration sees the boat strike as self-defense against these cartels and narco-terrorist regimes. Paul sees it as an overreach, although it's not, because the government already designated it to be what Trump wants it to be. Okay? But to many Americans, especially those watching the floods of fentanyl and all these human zombies wandering the streets, in my old city of Philadelphia, which is a goddamn disgrace, right? Trump's actions don't look nearly severe enough, right? They're necessary. You have to put a stop to this. And if you want to have guys that are only way of getting reelected is to pretend that there's some ideological guy where everybody else is in the swamp, we don't need them. We don't need them in the government at all. We don't need them in the Republican Party at all either. So next time you look at this stuff, look at it the right way. Why isn't Fauci in jail? Why are you playing around with this other stuff? Because you're trying to get some heat for yourself based on work that Trump does. You don't want to do anything on your own. You only play these little games. Like I said, him and Massey are two peas in a pod. But enough of that. Just saw this thing, and you don't want to continue it to go on because somebody allow Paul to start talking, and God, we don't need that again. So anyway, that's about all for the day. Have a good weekend. I'll talk to you later.